episode 171. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? I have a new setup this week. As I told you minutes before recording, I didn't test shit. We're just going.
I'll mess with your OCD a little bit. You're a little echoey? No, I'm just kidding. You're fine.
No, I know I'm a little echoey. I have my foam, wall padding that I still need to put up. In the corners, I already know. I was looking at stuff.
Because I already know it would mess with you. Because then you'll be sitting there trying to figure out a way to debuff the echo tonight before you upload the audio.
No, but I literally you can ask Sarah. At one point, I was in the office now, and I just did the thing where I clapped, and I was like, okay, this corner over here, I need something. So I might be a little echoey. Levels might be a little off. If you're watching on Twitch, you can see the top of my head potentially. I don't know. Sometimes you can't.
I had to adjust a little bit. That's one of the things I did adjust before we started recording. So
okay, so it's a work in progress. All I know is I got fresh Comcast lines run into this building, so my internet connection should be fine. The freshest Comcast wires.
Worst comment ever.
Oh yeah. We'll see when I drop 3 times during this recording.
All right, so we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a mostly weekly podcast that posts every Thursday on podcast services around the world. If you could leave us a review on any of those services, usually around 6 a.m. Eastern time is when our show goes live. If you're not subscribed to us, if you are subscribed to us, thank you. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing so that you don't even have to think about it. It just shows up in your feed. And if you're able to leave us a review with words at whatever service you use, Spotify, Podcast Addict, Apple Podcast, whatever, iTunes, whatever the heck they're called, anything that you use to listen to the podcast, if you can leave some kind of rating and a review, that is always awesome and helpful. We did take last week off due to Michael moving, and and it was also spring break for us, for Angela and Owen at home, so it was just a little easier in general. So
I was ready to record, but Dave was just like, do you want to evaluate your life decisions right now of do you really want to record the same day you were moving? And
I'm tired, but we can record if you want to. It was kind of like one of those sitcom back and forth, well, if you don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it, I don't want to do it.
Neither one of us wanted to be the one to delay the podcast, but we came to the conclusion of we both probably.
And there really wasn't much to talk about. So
yeah, I carried over one news story from last week because there wasn't much.
All right. If you want to hang out with us, join us in our community, whether it's Facebook, Discord, Twitter. All those are linked in the show notes. Patreon is there. PayPal is there. We do stream on Twitch, like Michael mentioned, twitch.tv/digitaldaysgaming, where you can watch the show live, typically on Tuesdays or Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We'll have a little bit more streaming this weekend, as my plan is to stream some of the X-Defiant closed beta that goes live by the time you're listening to this, as well as I do want to stream Metroid Remastered. And just some other things, so please consider following us there. And you can subscribe if you have Amazon Prime. You can link it with Twitch. You can get Prime Gaming, which gives you a free subscription to a streamer of your choice. Or you can, if you so choose, you can just pay to sub to us as well. And that's always super helpful and appreciative. The following and the sharing is free, and it's super easy to do. So just please consider following, liking, sharing anything that we have linked in the show notes. We'd appreciate it. All right, so speaking of news, I'm going to throw it over to Michael.
Yeah, we're going to do bad news, slowly going into better news. So the first one is one that I feel like we've been wondering about this studio, but Media Molecule announced that starting September 1st, they will no longer be supporting Dreams, so no more updates past September 1st. They also canceled the plans for online multiplayer, which has been on their Trello board since the game launched, of things we will get to eventually. That is no longer happening. Basically, the studio is moving on to their next project, so they cannot support Dreams the way that they were hoping to. This doesn't mean Dreams is going offline. You can still play, create, share, and Media Molecule will still spotlight different creations, but they aren't going to be actively patching the game or updating the game, adding new features come September 1st. There's a couple updates they're going to slide in there before then that was, already planned and finished. So there will be some activity with the game the next couple months. But again, come September 1st, they are not going to be making any additions to this game, which means we won't get like a native PS5 port of this game, which I feel like if it was going to happen, it would have happened like a year ago. So I already had that dream die, that was going to happen. But yeah, Dave, Media Molecule, moving on. I assume this is not a big shock for you, but it's un-Media Molecule-ish to do
Well,
this.
yeah, it's un-Media Molecule-ish to kind of give up, and that's I say that very hesitantly because that's the only really way to like the only kind of like nice way to put it. I don't think that they're giving up on this. I think that this is the same thing we've been talking about return on investment. If this was being substantially played a lot more, or I use play as a loose term, but if their user base was higher, I think it would be a completely different conversation. There is some awesome stuff that I've seen in Dreams. Chaz, who was a former colleague of ours years ago, is still pumping out content in Dreams, and the stuff that he's able to make as just somebody that just plays with Dreams is phenomenal. As well as the other stuff that I've seen come out of Dreams. The reason that I am a little surprised by this is like this is on the heels of them of Sony as a whole talking about like making a dedicated leap into games as a service in general, and this optically doesn't look good.
Yeah, I would. This definitely doesn't like. I almost feel like they didn't even need to announce that they're not going to support the game.
They could have just
September.
stopped.
Yeah, because like it's not like the game was getting like gigantic updates. I feel like they could have just came out and been like, "Hey, we're not going to do the multiplayer thing. Sorry," and that would have probably like eased this blow a little bit. I need to look at the timeline, but I feel like this is one of those instances where Dreams might have started by Media Molecule before the current regime took over, and we see this in every industry when you have executives take over, they look at the previous projects and they don't really care about it. And I feel like Dreams kind of suffered without.
Yeah, but Ryan's from Europe. Like
he is, but it wasn't his green light. And also, like I would imagine Media Molecule said like we're going to be working on other projects. I wonder if like PlayStation as a whole looked at like whatever Jade Raymond's team is making, which is supposed to be like this new experimental thing where people can create things, and I wonder if they looked at it of like, hey, Dreams really isn't catching, we don't want to have potentially two things in the same space. Media Molecule, why don't you go help them out, make sure they have their creation tools where they need to be, because Media Molecule has done amazing work in that space. Absolutely. But this Dreams never felt like it got promoted properly. It wasn't apparently important enough for them to give it a native PS5 port. I know like backwards compatibility kind of defeats the purpose for most of that, but like other games get full on ports, and this would
other Sony first party games get full on PS5 support. I just hope that between now and September we hear something of a high tier independent creator that does some cool stuff on Dreams being hired by somebody. Like,
I mean,
ideally, I would love to see them hired by Media Molecule because they're messing with their tools, or like to your point, Jade Raymond Studio. But we've seen modders, like I think it was Bethesda modders got hired by Bethesda. Yeah. We've seen some.
Media Molecule have hired Little Big Planet creators.
Right.
So
I just really hope that headline as we get closer to September gets some of the attention it deserves, because whatever they're working on next is still going to be a Media Molecule unique project. Like they have a very unique niche and for what they do and how they do things. And as much as selfishly, I would probably love to see something else, Little Big Planet or with Sackboy, because I would love for Owen to experience some of that. I would really love to see a Media Molecule do something like more heavily narrative driven, I think.
Yeah. Whether it's like Little Big Planet or not, like especially like Dreams felt like that was the goal of like Little Big Planet in terms of like the tool set. So I don't know if they can reiterate on the creation, tool set program that they were doing, because Dreams achieved a lot in terms of like how it worked.
And do you feel like the PlayStation 5 community is fiending for a creative game like this, or to your point, two first party creative games like this?
Well, and that's the thing is like we need to know what the Jade Raymond is.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there because it was the blurb. I feel like there is definitely space for it on console. Like PlayStation players have a deep love for like Little Big Planet, and Dreams did have hype going into it, except this kind of came out and it went, which is something that we see in like specifically PlayStation. We see a lot where like they'll have a project that they kind of just put out there, and if it doesn't catch fire, they just move on. Like I would love to, if Dreams was given the same love that like in Ubisoft gives some of their live service games, where they'll throw out a live service game, it'll bomb, and they'll be like, don't worry, come back in a year, this is going to be good or bigger,
better.
Yeah. And I wish they could do that for Dreams. I'm just happy they're not turning the servers off as of yet. Like I imagine that will happen eventually. But at least people are going to still be able to create stuff. And luckily the tool set's open enough that people can probably break new features into it, because that's something that's always been like a thing with like Little Big Planet and Dreams to an extent.
Brute force something in there.
Yeah, people brute force stuff or break things a certain way to make a new feature. So there's still life for Dreams. It's just kind of sucks when Media Molecule have to like basically throw in the towel. And I don't know what they're going to do next. Like, I don't see Media Molecule going away or anything like that. But
no, absolutely not. So,
though, if their next game doesn't do well, then you'd probably have to start worrying about them. But they take so long to release things.
Yeah, that's the other concerning part is like, I don't even... So I think I had to look it up. Like Dream's official release date was like 2020. But I think this was like them dabbling with like early access. And I feel like this has been, I mean, since 2018, this has been something you could play. Maybe late 18, early 19. And then, so
when it first released, we were recording with Josh.
Right.
On the old show.
And like Angela told me the other day, like, I think we're gonna be like 4 or 5 in November.
Something like that. Yeah. 2019 is when we started.
Yeah. So I mean, my only concern is that we had seen this so many, like I remember seeing this so many times at E3s with PS Nation, like 2 or 3 E3s at least, or every one that I went to. So we're talking about, like this 10-year window probably from development until release of this next game, minimum. Like, they've been working on this since like 2014, 2015, and knowing Media Molecule's track record, I mean, unless there's something smaller, more bite-sized from them, we're probably talking 2025 at the earliest for another game. Like, and I feel like that's super early if they're just now moving on to their next project in 2023.
Yeah, unless they already knew this was coming and started to like do work on stuff, or like, I hate to say it, but if Media Molecule ends up becoming like an auxiliary studio, that is a really talented studio to have help.
They did it. They kind of did it to Bend. So
they did it to Bend, to where like if this temporarily becomes a studio that's like going to support like the Jade Raymond thing or the former Destiny people's thing, like this is a studio that's going to be more than capable of doing that.
Or just even helping Guerrilla with this alleged, MMO or multiplayer Horizon game, but
or just bust out VR games, because like right now Sony, like I didn't put that in the news, but PSVR 2 is not doing well. You need software. Media Molecule could probably pump out some really good like mini games, party game software for
I mean, I know Insomniac's busy, but where's this VR tech that they like? That was what made them. We heard or rumored that was what made Sony kind of accelerate buying them, because Oculus was looking at them because of some of the cool VR tech they were doing. Like, where is it? So
they turned out to be just really, really good at the superhero games.
No, those games are phenomenal. But the rumor was that the reason why the Sony acquisition came so fast was because there was other heat on them from VR development standpoints. Like, and like I would love to see them do something in VR. But I'd love to see all these studios do something in VR. But they got to get some of their first party stuff rolling too. So.
We'll move on to the next news story. Again, we're going from bad news story to worse news story. E3 is officially canceled. So this is from 2 weeks ago, but we were going to talk about it last week. So ReedPop officially basically released a statement being like, hey, due to several publishers pulling out and there being a lack of interest in the event, we're canceling E3, and that led to Jeff Keighley basically celebrating on E3's grave, just pumping out like tweets of like, I missed the old E3, but Summer Game Fest is coming this year in that time frame. But it sounds like for the most part, ReedPop or the ESA just couldn't agree on plans, and they weren't looping in the publishers to where that's why all the publishers were just like, we can't wait.
Well, it was probably getting too long. Like they were probably like, okay, like are we going to do this? Are we not going to do this? Because I mean, at the time of when the story broke, it was early April. You're talking about 60 days, 80 days from when they were supposed to be like setting up stuff and planning stuff and telling their devs like what they have to have ready or what they can't have ready. Like it was just getting too close. There was, sadly, I feel like there was a lot, Keighley aside, I just feel like there was a lot of celebrating of this being canceled.
It's weird. I saw both sides.
Yeah, I saw the celebration side of it, and I saw the memory side of it. And I mean, I've said this for years, like even during the pandemic. And I mean, I can't give any impressions, but I mean, I got to play X Defiant early. Remote access from this exact desk I'm sitting at, and nothing will ever replace. Like this is close. Like these remote things are very close and damn near just as good, but nothing will ever replace in-person meetings and in-person playing with the dev sitting next to you. Nothing. I personally feel them opening it to the public was a mistake. It was always open to the public. You just had to know somebody that knew somebody. You could get to E3 if you wanted to get to E3 as a non-press person, as a non-developer. You could do it. It took some effort, but you could do it. But I definitely feel, and I think I can confidently say this. I was there a couple years when it wasn't, and I was there when it partially was, and then when it fully was over that time. And you as well. It changed dramatically when it was just quote unquote open to the public, and in terms of what was being shown and how it was being shown, and the cool shit ran away. Like the cool stuff went away.
Because the cool shit was usually stuff that was way too early for public consumption, to where when they opened it to the public, all that early access stuff, the stuff that's just like an idea in a developer's head, that stuff disappeared, and it was like near finished products on the show floor. There was still stuff like you can find upstairs, but even then, like some companies didn't want to go and just be cooped up in a little cubicle for
and it just made the hassle even harder. It was more guards, more security, more more I had to show my ID, my badge and my personal ID more often to more people.
We ended up just putting our ID in our badge holder at a certain point.
It was just, and versus before it was like, okay, I had, I didn't have a colored badge before. I could go wherever I wanted to go. I didn't have a problem. I had a phone number to contact to a direct person that would then walk out of the booth and like raise their hand in the air like, hey, I'm right here, and that was gone. Like as soon as they started having yellow badges and like that disappeared. And it went away. It went away at the same time that the video games were changing, and I would probably say 75% of it was them opening the public, 25% of it was the pandemic. And with the pandemic, companies realizing we can get the same return on investment on Twitch or on YouTube or on a live stream or on a Nintendo Direct state of play showcase style, and they're still getting it, and it just sucks. So
the thing that I think we found two things is the big publishers found out our return on investment is the same, if not greater, by just doing our own thing. I think
when they want to as well, they're not dictated by June.
Yeah, which helps the actual developers because they don't have to work on a vertical slice out of nowhere. They don't even have to work on a vertical slice anymore because it's a controlled environment that they can release footage from. But I think it hurts like the indies, and
tell if that's him or
those developers ended up being the ones that suffered the most from all this. And I think I may have lost Dave. Okay.
Nah, I can. Yeah, I can't tell if that's you or me. So.
Yeah, you froze up. But it seems like the indies now have a bigger battle because that's where you would find stuff that you didn't know existed until that day. And there are indie showcases, but they still haven't figured out how to do that.
Oh, you loved that place. You were, on a Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon. I can't even think what the name of it is right now, but there was like a Indiecade, like quadrant of one of the halls that there was probably, I don't know, 15, 20 games there on laptops, little TVs, 20-inch displays or whatever, and you would just, you only needed like, I don't know, what, 10, 15 minutes at each game. They weren't anything like crazy or extensive, but that was where some of your favorite games came from that you played, enjoyed, and then loved the release of them as well. And that's where some cool content that you were able to produce came from as well, of interviews and some awesome written work that you did on that stuff as well.
Yeah, and that's lost now, and like they haven't figured out how to present indie stuff. Like the indie streams that happen are okay, but they're also like, here's 100 indie games in like a 30-minute video, and it's just like, cool, no one's gonna remember these outside of one or two. As opposed to when we would go to E3, how many times were we sitting at a table at the end of the day and I'm like, okay, I saw this game, I explained its concept, and you guys are like, oh, that sounds cool. I'd be like, cool, I'll take you there tomorrow, and then we'll go play it, and then we'll go find and just. And
they would recognize. I mean, as dumb as it sounds, I know it was only like 24 hours later, but they would recognize you, and then and they would say, hey, I want to show this to Dave. And like I was fortunate enough with like some of our Activision connections that, hey, like this, like whatever Call of Duty's doing is really cool, like I want to check it out. Like, okay, like the in-person things, like I'm still sending emails sometimes, and like I get along with some great people and I email them back and forth, but it usually lives in these small confined things of it's vastly different when you're in person, you're waiting in line, somebody else is playing, you're 5 minutes early for an appointment, and you're talking to your PR contacts and that are there, and their job is there to talk to you and set some stuff up for you and write some stuff on the schedule. But then you're just having that personal, whether it's a handshake, a hug, whatever it is, like that can never go away.
Yeah, I don't know how many times that I've gone to one appointment and then the person I talked to is like, hey, one of my associates is working at this booth over here. Here's their business card. Here's my business card. Go take it to them and they'll let you play it right away, or something like that, to where you would just discover things throughout the day. And that's how we would fill our days. Just, finding all that stuff. And now only the big studios are going to be able to do the remote session stuff that like me and Dave have done over the past couple of years.
I think that we're honestly going to have to look at trying to get to PAX West.
Yeah, we're going to have to look at like doing a PAX, just because we need to get in front of people and we need to look at indie games again, because just how things are going. And it's weird because like people were like blaming ReedPop that they couldn't put a show together. They run PAX and every Comic-Con that you can think of.
Right.
So I'm kind of blaming the ESA on this one, where they either didn't support ReedPop or just had a misunderstanding of, or
turned down ReedPop's ideas or something. Yeah.
It's baffling that I can hear people being like, oh, ReedPop is going to go out of business. It's like they just did PAX East and it was a big success, and PAX West, and I think they still do PAX Australia. Like they're fine. It just seems like ESA just really, really dropped the ball on doing this, and now Jeff Keighley's going to take over. But
to be fair, like Keighley's not going to be able to put on what E3 did 5 years ago.
No, but it's got to start somewhere, and he's at least got major publishers that are willing to bring vertical slices to his friends, basically, because that's all Summer Game Fest is. It's like,
yeah, but it's going to be a stage show. Like, it's not like, right? It's going to be, every 15 minutes game comes on.
So last year he had a warehouse with or a hotel rented, and publishers had individual rooms. Like, it wasn't as big as E3, but it was like, here are demos that you get to play. So he's building towards an E3, but I don't know if he'll ever achieve an E3. But right now it's like, hey, if you want to present your game in front of Keighley and friends of Keighley, Summer Game Fest is the place to do it. And it culminates in a stage show.
Yeah. I just don't know if that's enough draw to bring significant press to LA for that right now.
I mean, it benefits from just bringing the LA and San Francisco press, which is good enough. It's never going to do global, but that's why Summer Gamescom exists. Right. Or just Gamescom. That exists in TGS. But we'll move on to something that kind of started to develop today. Redfall is only going to be in 30 frames per second on the in 4K and in 1440p. 60 frames.
4K 30 frames on Series X.
Yes.
30 frames 1440p on Series S. No mention of PC.
No.
And then that a 60 FPS performance mode is coming later.
Yes. The reason they didn't mention PC is, Dave, did you know that all the footage they've shown have been in 60 frames per second up until this point? So I'm assuming we've only been seeing the PC version.
So yeah, that's where I've seen some of it today, is that there's this thing going on of like, oh, well, people said they played on an Xbox. Like, I think that you might have found one or two people that maybe mistakenly thought they were playing on Xbox. And again, to be fair, it's circling back to these events, and I can speak to a lot of Ubisoft stuff because Ubisoft is multi-platform. Sometimes I feel like it's always been on PC, because reason number one is I feel like it's always been on PC is because there's always a keyboard right there. But I've never seen like what PC I'm playing on. I've never seen, like if I was playing on a PS4 Pro. There's been a couple times that I've seen like a Pro sitting on right underneath the TV, but for the most part, like you're gonna get like the best version of the game. But ultimately, like, okay, so like Josh that I know, not Josh Langford, but another Josh, like it's embarrassing for Xbox. Why? Like Ratchet and Clank was 30 frames at 4K.
But it had a performance mode.
It did.
It did 60.
Right.
This doesn't even have that, and I think that's
Last of Us wasn't on even on PS5 when it was playable on PS5. It wasn't 60, and it didn't come until it got a huge performance patch later to go to 60 frames per second. And I feel like that with a new game and new IP, new franchise, if they didn't say anything, it might have been a conversation around launch that it was running at 30 frames per second. But like, I'm just irritated that public relations and executives are speaking and not devs.
Mm-hmm. If the devs were speaking, they would have said the game runs at a solid 30 frames per second in this mode, and instead we've just been seeing 60 frame PC mode or PC play, and just assuming we're gonna get like some version
he's
that.
like, oh, Call of Duty's been doing 60 frames in 360, like not a solid 60 frames, not a locked 60 frames either, for the record. And I would argue that any game that has the ability set of and again, people can get annoyed with this, but Destiny years ago came out and talked about this. They said and they've been able to do it recently, but they pretty much said when there are 6 people in a group and we don't know what they're going to do in terms of like what subclass they're going to run, what weapons they're going to run, what abilities they're going to run. I mean, Destiny has crashed because there's been too many orbs on the ground at one time, or too many colors on the screen has caused the game to crash. And there, and Redfall has classes and has abilities and has upgrades, and I feel like this is the safest thing to do while they're collecting the information and data to see, okay, what happens when this engine is running 110%? Like, what happens?
I don't know if that fully flies when you look at like a Call of Duty that has 16 to 32 players that have different costumes, different like weapon loadouts and stuff, and they can consistently hit 60.
Yeah, but there's not an NPC on the match anywhere. Like you're not going against hordes of enemies. You're going against 16 versus 16.
But if you look at like Battlefield, you have literal buildings falling apart and dust and windstorms.
Yeah, and you had
happening.
Frames going to shit when it happened.
On the last one, yes. The previous ones, you've been fine.
Battlefield 4 was a mess.
It was at first. But I think the big problem with this is they were showing 60 FPS footage, and they weren't distinguishing it as PC. It just said like game actively in development. And also the fact
I know is if it went reverse, like if it was running at 60 frames and then some update came out and they said, hey, we can't run it at 60 anymore and now it's at 30, then like that's a problem. But this, like, for the most people, like, this is what you're going to see, this is what you're going to play from day one, and you're going to be fine. Like, this is not going to affect the quality of this game.
So, but I would say the fact that there is no performance mode day one, is bullshit. And also, it almost feels like you're rushing a game out because you're not putting your best foot forward based on when it's releasing. Like, I have to pull up the schedule, but this is coming out in May, right?
May 5th, I think. So.
Okay, Redfall comes out May 2nd. And then that is what, 2 weeks before Legend of Zelda?
Oh, the window of what it releases in, it's sandwiched between Jedi Survivor and Tears of the Kingdom. So that's a terrible window for it, but 60 frames per second isn't going to make it saved in that window.
But if you're saying like, hey, we need more time to put like a performance mode in a game, it's just like, then fucking delay the game. Like, put your best foot forward because people do care about this. It's on Game Pass, so in the end, it probably won't matter too much because they're not looking for sales. They're looking for subs to actually like interact with the service. But it's one of those things where it's just like, this is something that is possible, but it does hurt the game overall because you don't need to rush this game out because you're on Game Pass. And if you're telling me a month later we can get a performance mode, well, then I'm going to wait a month to play this because I would rather get 60 FPS because unfortunately I feel like I've been spoiled now to where it's kind of hard for me to go back to 30 frames per second, especially for a shooter. Even though this does, to your point, have a lot of different things going on, you know, like there's abilities and a lot of like visual flares happening. I'm kind of spoiled when it comes to shooters that I expect there to be a 60.
I get it from a shooter standpoint, and the rushing and the delaying part. Like, they can't delay this game again. Should they delay the game? Yes, they can't delay it again. They're already getting. Microsoft's already having, you know, first party management issues in general. Like they can't delay this game again. Like, it's just
if this game does not stay consistently 30 frames per second, if it
Digital
ever
Foundry's going to
dips,
destroy it.
Then they're completely fucked at that point. Like, they better hope that is the most stable 30 frames, because if it dips, then this should have been delayed.
And here's the deal too. Like, this is what people are not going to like me hearing saying this. Yes, I understand that Bethesda is owned by Microsoft, but Bethesda is still Bethesda. And, you know, and I'm, you know, I don't know, like, if Phil Spencer goes to Pete Hines and says, make it 60, and Hines goes, no, like, what happens? Like, you know, like, we can't, like, you know, they're owned by Microsoft, but as of right now, like we just talked about, this game was in active development before. Like, yeah, is it bad? Does it look awful that people were playing this game at 60 frames per second on PC and all these things, and now it's coming out 30 frames per second at launch? Yeah, but this also circles back to the same thing we were just talking about at the first story about Media Molecule. What if Redfall just didn't say anything? Like, and May 2nd comes around and people are like, oh, it's at 30 frames. Is it going to be getting as much news as it's getting today? I don't think so.
Potentially, because they've been showing footage and they haven't distinguished that footage is, like, I feel like just because they've shown footage and haven't distinguished what that frame rate was for some of that footage, I think that's ultimately would have damned them either way.
I just think they look dumb today for releasing that tweet. Like,
I felt like they felt like they just had to get out of the way because they didn't want to deal with the launch day Digital Foundry video. That's just like, yeah, no, it's at 29 frames per second most of the time. And they felt they needed to get out of the way. Now I'm just at the point where I'm just like, you're already releasing in like a really tight window. You're on Game Pass. You already have the cushion of like, hey, it doesn't matter about sales. So you can eat like 2 more months. Release this in July. Give us that performance mode.
If it has any live service functionality to it, this is going to bring people back. Like, this is going to bring people back to playing Redfall. They're going to play it. They're going to be like, oh, I can't deal with the 30 frames. I'll play it later. So they're going to talk about it on launch day, and then they're going to talk about it when the performance patch comes out. And then this will probably tie into a new event or a new piece of content that's in the game. Like, from a business marketing standpoint, like, they'll be fine.
I think there's a real danger of it backfiring, though, in terms of, like, 2
now it's going to, because like that they said something. Now it's like when the reviews come out of like, oh, this would be an 8.5 if it ran at 60 frames. Stop it. Like, just stop it. Like,
the only thing is they don't.
I hate frame snobs. Like, yes, I understand. Yeah. I understand that frames per second matters. I agree that it matters. I notice it when I play games and they drop below 60 frames. I notice it. I see it. I feel it. But if a reviewer punishes this game because Redfall was transparent, that's dumb.
But when we're talking about a first-person shooter, that will matter in review scores of like, damn, this runs at 30, I wish it ran a little smoother, and it ran at 60. So that will hurt it ultimately. So I don't think if it gets knocked, it's going to be like, oh, well, they didn't have their mode. It's going to be like, shit, they should have had it. This is a first-person shooter. And I think that's ultimately going to hurt them. And I don't know if they can afford, it's going to be on Game Pass, sure, but like, as a live service potential game, can they go 2 months of people like, I'm just going to wait for the next patch? Oh, I'm going to wait for the performance mode? It probably can't go 2 months of waiting for the player base to hopefully come back when you have a Zelda coming out 2 weeks after, you have Final Fantasy 16 coming a month after, Street Fighter 6 coming a month after, Diablo coming a month after. Like, there's a real period where you're going to hope these people are going to come back to your game that might not come back because they're going to be busy with other things. So you're not putting your best foot forward for this type of game. And that, again, ultimately could end up biting them in the ass. And it sucks because I like Arcane as a studio. They make solid games, but this seems like something that they should have maybe try to figure out on how to get that performance mode in on day one. Because it's going to... I'm not a FPS snob fully, but I'm like, well, the first time I play the game, I want it to be the best experience possible. So I'll probably wait a month. Because all those games that I just mentioned, I'm not really interested in.
I get it, but ultimately, like, they don't care if you wait a month because...
Then they should have delayed it a month.
But how many new subscribers will they have by advertising Redfall on Game Pass?
It's a new IP. It's kind of hard to tell.
Right.
So
I'd be curious when their quarters are. I just if it runs, like, to your point, if it's locked at 30 frames per second, it doesn't dip, it doesn't spike up or down, it doesn't move, and the game runs smooth and is fun to play, it is not going to matter.
Yeah.
It's not.
Reese puts up in the in our chat of it. This kind of looks bad on Xbox because of like Halo having to wait for patches and get improved. So this is like another Xbox first party. Yes, it's Bethesda, but Xbox first party shooter that is now waiting for patches that we know day one we're waiting for the next patch, and it's just Xbox can't keep doing this. Like, they need to.
Yeah, the gaming consumer has just accepted half-baked games at launch in general. Like, God of War Ragnarok just got New Game Plus.
It got New Game Plus, but that's like a completely additional, like, cherry on top. No one was playing God of War Ragnarok when it came out and was just like, shit, this is unfinished.
It was 30 frames on PS4. I mean, I understand that it's two different systems, but like, I mean, I'd be really curious what the PC specs are, and if the PC, if on a PC, an average PC, it can run at 60 frames per second, and it can't do it on Xbox Series X, like, that's a bigger problem. Like, that's a bigger problem.
Yeah, if it's like, if you have to put it on high quality mode just to get 60, yeah, that's going to be like, if you can run it at like,
if my PC can run it at 60 frames with no problem, and I don't have to do it based on like default settings, like, I mean, I think my new PC is a little stronger than the next gen than the current gen consoles, but it's not much stronger.
Yeah.
But if it can run 60 frames,
mine's underpowered compared to the new next gen consoles, so I'm going to be curious if I'm running at 60.
That'll be a really bad look. Like, that'll be a really bad look. I mean, we've seen some of that stuff with these other games coming out saying we can't really do anything until we can get it to work on a Series S. That kind of story was out and about, and then it kind of died a little bit. I don't know. It's just one of these things where, like, when companies are transparent, they just get shit on.
Yeah, but sometimes you kind of, if the company keeps making these mistakes, you kind of have to you kind of have to throw it at them and just let them know that like this is an unacceptable. Like the next multiplayer game from Xbox that's going to be 60 frames per second will probably be a Call of Duty game, like because they just can't achieve it. Or we'll see what Minecraft Legends it runs.
That's like next week, but
yeah. Which I'll download that on Game Pass. Will I play it? I don't know, but I'll download it. All right, let's move on to the next story. This one we don't usually talk about like leaks too much, but this one's kind of funny for me, and I'm interested in these franchises. Jet Set Radio and Persona 3 remakes have apparently leaked. So I don't know, Dave, you remember we covered it like a year ago, but Bloomberg reported that Sega was looking to like reboot or remake Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi as franchises. Bloomberg wasn't able to figure out if that meant like reboots, like they're just going to redo everything, or if it was just remake re-releases. But we got no official word from Sega on if that was going to happen. So flash forward to last week, and several images and clips from reported internal sources show Jet Set Radio and Persona 3 running with like updated visuals. The reported images for Jet Set Radio were from like an internal survey that showed people different art style options for the game, because art style is very important for Jet Set Radio. So there was different concept arts for people in this internal survey to check out, and most of those images have leaked, and it makes it seem like it is very real. Persona 3 had actual gameplay footage leak, and this was from an internal presentation. Gamatsu, I forget how to say that. I know people that work there, and I always forget how to pronounce that website. But they basically confirmed that Atlus has been working on the Persona 3 remake for several years, and it's just something that they don't know if they're just kind of doing to like dick around with like the engine stuff, or if they are actually going with a full-fledged like remake remaster. But they were also able to dig up a website that points to a remaster happening, or a remake for Persona 3. So, Dave, I know you don't care about either one of these franchises, but it kind of sounds like where there's smoke, there's fire, based on everything people have been able to dig up. And
I don't know why you wouldn't. Like, I mean, everybody loves Persona. I have small memories of playing Jet Set Radio. I think in terms of like on the heels of the success of Hi-Fi Rush, in terms of like that similar art style, like success, whatever you want to call it, like the little quick spike that it had, and nostalgia of, could these games benefit from this? Yeah, 100%. Like, is this great stuff to add to your library of games to play while you're waiting for 120 frame per second games to not work? Yeah. It's like all this stuff is great, and this stuff is easy instant cash for these devs. So
yeah, like I'm super interested in like Jet Set Radio, though some of the like survey art look kind of scary because they try to go with a realistic look. But there's definitely something there, like was it like Cyber Rush? There's like a fan service spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio that's coming out this summer. So I could see Sega seeing people excited about that and being like, well, we have the actual IP. Yeah. And then also Sega probably looking at Capcom making bank, remastering and remaking stuff. And is like, we have a whole library of stuff.
I just feel like that sometimes you miss your windows, and they need to get going quick. And whether it's a new IP or remastered, like they need to make sure that they're hitting it in the right, in the right cadence. Immediately as you were talking about this, I was thinking about the success of Tony Hawk, the remakes, and then like the rumors about Skate 4.
Yes.
And now, like, where is it? Like the little, I feel like the
Gameplay
window,
leaks.
I'm just using this as an example, like skateboarding games, or like the on the heels of the Tony Hawk somewhat success. Now you're 12 or 18 months out again of like another Skate game comes out. Can Skate rise to the, versus trying to line up with Tony Hawk a little bit better? Like I'm just worried that, Jet Set Radio might be next year, and the example I used was with Hi-Fi Rush and that art style. Like the player was already comfortable playing a game in that art style. Continuing to do that is good, versus like, hey, I just got done playing, I don't know, Starfield at this massive next gen game that's like, pushing the boundaries of video game play or whatever, and now I'm going to go back and play a 20-year-old game.
Yeah. Well, it's Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is the like Jet Set Radio clone that's coming out this summer.
Okay.
And that could be something that could ruin Sega's plans in terms of like, hey, this is really good. We don't want a remaster of Jet Set Radio. We want a sequel. Or, oh, I thought I wanted to go back to this genre, and this spiritual successor showed me that, like, oh, no, I don't. So then Jet Set Radio misses its window that way, too. To where, like, Sega would probably need to make an official announcement, like, during Summer Game Fest of, like, hey, we are doing it. Here's a trailer. It's coming out soon. Because there's competition in the market, and it could go either way based on the success of that competition. Just like the Tony Hawk thing, where like Tony Hawk broke all these records when it was remastered, and we didn't get Tony Hawk 3 remastered, and then Skate went on the shelf of like, hey, we're announced. You guys like skateboarding. See you in 3-4 years, and we'll see if we still care about skateboarding games in 3 or 4 years. So Sega kind of needs to hurry. I'm a little
I mean, I guess the best example I can give it to is we're probably going to get some this fall or next or this winter coming up. We're going to probably get some cool roguelike inspiration from Hades style from a Hades game. But are people kind of already moved on from that, that roguelike or that rogue kick your butt top down asymmetrical, style?
Which is like scary for Supergiant to do Hades 2, which is what they're doing next. And it's just like, are we going to care about this, or was it lightning in a bottle? And I'm a little bummed out though. Like, the Persona 3 stuff's cool. Jet Set Radio stuff's cool. But like Crazy Taxi was mentioned in that original report, but there's been nothing. And I worry that Sega's research was like, Crazy Taxi's not going to work.
Well,
anymore.
And my concern with Jet Set Radio is like, this has got to be a licensing nightmare, right? I mean, licensing is getting a little bit better, but like...
Yeah, so a lot of the songs were original, but there are a few licensed songs, and I would wonder if some of those bands even exist now, which is a thing that Tony Hawk had to do. I think there was like 2 or 3 tracks that the bands didn't exist anymore, so they couldn't license the songs.
Yeah, we ran into this with the Need for Speed Burnout, right? Or Burnout Paradise?
Yeah, they were missing a couple songs too, or it ended up being like really expensive to get as much of the soundtrack back as they did. So there could be issues with that. And also the original composer, I think, is working on Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. So it's just like, I'm sure he'll take the call from Sega and will do the soundtrack. But it could be something that's just not in the cards.
Yeah.
Especially if Bomb Rush Cyberfunk takes off and, starts its own franchise. So there's opportunities. The Persona 3 thing is funny because they just re-released Persona 3 on Game Pass and PS5 and all that stuff. And one of the big complaints with Persona's re-release is like, oh shit, this game does not hold up as well as Persona 4.
But didn't they do like Persona 4 Golden, which was like a redo of 4? Like, am I getting those wrong? Or
they re-released Golden, which was the like...
But I thought calling it Golden was the new version of the game, or am I wrong with that?
Golden was actually the Vita version that added new things to it. It's basically, if you look at it like a Game of the Year edition, they basically ported the Vita Game of the Year edition over to the current stuff. And people love that because it still holds up because it's the most recent one in comparison to 3. And people looked at 3 of like, oh shit, this game needs an update real bad. But is that something that would turn fans off of like, oh, you know what? I played it, I tried it, and I couldn't get into it. I don't care about the reboot of this game.
Yeah. So real quick before you get into the next story, just because you brought it up, because you said the word Vita, did you see the reports of Sony making a handheld that's like a remote play device? Yeah,
I saw that. I mean, it makes sense. There's a ton of these out there now.
But they can't get remote play to work on the other devices.
It works enough. It works well enough. Like, I know people that like remote play to like their iPad and it works fine. It's just, you have to be in your house, and it's at that point, it's like, well, why wouldn't you just be on your couch?
Dude, I have a hard time remote playing from upstairs to downstairs on my PC.
Yeah, they need to figure out the software for PC, but it seems to work tablet-wise. as far as I know, because I haven't messed around with it. Maybe their issues would be fixed by having like a proprietary piece of hardware,
custom made just for remote play. Yeah,
it's just going to come down to like pricing. Like, I don't know if anyone's going to want to bust out a couple $100 for the Wii U tablet for their PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing they're not willing to bust out a bunch of money for a VR attachment. So
yeah, it's just another piece of software out there, especially with like the Steam Deck is so damn good, and you can probably run remote play on the Steam Deck to where it's like, what's the point of this? So I think that's a Sony just looking at the market and being like, let's just put some patents out there just so we can have patents out there. But I don't know if it'll come to fruition or what that would even look like. Because then, man, imagine buying like a little like standalone tablet Vita thing for remote play, and then you get Joy-Con drift or thumbstick drift.
Like, you can't download a game to it. Like, you have to, like, I wish that I wish they could figure out, like, you could download like a non-online game. Like, you could like download God of War to it and play it and like take it in my car. Like, I own the game. Like, I get it. Like, make sure I have to be connected to Wi-Fi like once every 72 hours.
You would
or
need
something.
that. You see how gigantic that PS5 is.
I know.
You would need that hardware in there.
So, all right.
What if they made a backpack that you can attach to
a Zach
PS5?
Morris Vita?
Yeah, you just attach it, and it has a car battery at the bottom of it to power it.
It's solar panel.
Yeah, that's actually what you need, Dave. But we'll move on to the last story, which will just lead into Dave's playing and watching. The Super Mario movie is breaking a shit ton of records. So Super Mario Brothers opened up this past weekend. I'm going to see it this weekend, but it grossed $146 million in the US, and globally it hit $377 million, and it's on pace to be the biggest film of the year. So if it's not already the biggest film of the year, and
it's the biggest animated film ever, right? Now I think it
I think it's behind one of the Minions.
It had the best opening weekend of an animated film ever, or something. I think
second biggest behind Frozen.
Okay, so you're talking about something. You're talking about Mario going toe to toe with Disney. Like, that's a big deal. It's awesome. I hope we get more. Like, I saw something showed up on my Facebook feed of like, and I didn't really dig into it. It was just an image, and I didn't know if it had an article attached to it of like a roadmap of the Nintendo Cinematic Universe or something like that, with like Zelda and Donkey Kong and Smash Brothers and Kirby. And I was just like, there's no way Illumination can hit this cadence. Like, when I saw it, but I mean, from the time that we heard about this movie till it came out, I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good turnaround time, and Illumination doesn't really have anything else going on for it. Like, yeah, I feel like Minions can take a couple years off.
Yeah, the movie was fantastic. Like Owen enjoyed it, Angela loved it, I loved it. Like, it was great. I when I left the theater, I wasn't even thinking about who was or wasn't the voice actor, other than the fact that Jack Black stole the whole damn show.
Which I think we all were going into it expecting. I'm just like, all right, if Chris Pratt is shit, Jack Black is gonna.
But I like, again, but like, and maybe like, I know you and I watch things differently, but like, when we saw the trailers, like, I think we were so focused on the voice actors, but like, when the movie gets going, like, it just fit. Like, it just, everything just fit, everything flowed. It's just good. Like, it ended, and Owen's like, that's great. And like, they, there's post-credit scenes and like, which is common core for movies now. It was one of those things where like, people clapped at the end in the theater I was in. Like, like, that doesn't happen to every movie.
Fucking nerds.
It's like, it is just, I'm the day that movie comes out on DVD or digital, like, we're buying it. Like,
did you see the steelbook for it? Like, the pre-orders for the steelbook? It's a really nice steelbook.
Yeah, I kind of refrained myself. So, but like that would be something like in 6 months when Owen goes, Dad, can we put Mario Brothers on? Like, I don't care. Like, that's fine. Like, I would, have no problem. His like Jack Black's Peaches song is going to be nominated for an Oscar or something like that. Like,
yeah,
it was really, really good. Like, it was just good.
And I'm kind of happy because this opens up Nintendo hopefully more to taking risks. Because like the first Mario movie scared them away from Hollywood for 30 years.
Yeah.
Or 40 years almost. And now they see the success. I'm sure they had a hell of a negotiation for how much of this money becomes theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope this leads to them revisiting like Zelda, like they were with Netflix a couple years ago. It sounds like that deal was on the table ready to be signed, but then Nintendo got mad, someone leaked it, and then pulled the deal. So I hope that means we get stuff. I mean, if this leads to the Smash Brothers movie, I don't know what that means, but like if this leads to like the cinematic universe for that, cool. Give me a Kirby movie. Give me that standalone Donkey Kong movie and then introduce Diddy Kong. There's a lot of stuff Nintendo has. I mean, if this ultimately can lead to like a real Pokemon movie, that would be fucking fantastic. Because we haven't had Detective Pikachu was a good Pokemon movie, but
I think like you got to embrace the animation part of it at this point in time. Like
exactly,
it's a video game and they're Nintendo games. Like embrace the animation. Like whoever did Uncharted was able to do that because that was more of a real life adaptation. Like it's just live with what and that's what Illumination did, and and Nintendo had them do is like they took with what was great and solid about Mario and just expanded upon it in a fantastic way.
Yeah, I'm seeing it this weekend. I'm excited. We're gonna go to like an IMAX theater to watch it. I haven't seen a movie. I'm just excited for what this could mean for like what Nintendo is willing to do and willing to open themselves up. I mean, they already have the theme park, which is a big success. They have this movie. They're sitting on a ton of franchises that can easily translate into like an animated movie. And then hopefully this will, like, not to bring it back to PlayStation, because I always seem to bring it back to PlayStation. Maybe this can show PlayStation of like, hey, maybe we should do Ratchet and Clank again. Like, and actually put a
Sly
full
Cooper.
Effort. Yeah. Like maybe we can look at our animated properties with some love and respect again, because clearly it's working. Xbox could be like, hey, we're gonna own Spyro and Crash soon. Let's get the ball rolling on.
No, I love the success right now, and if we're gonna go into the next 10 years where we're starting to see some video game franchises in general start making their way to TV shows and movies, like sign me up. Like Last of Us and Mario Brothers doing extremely well, and I'm for it. Like I've said it for years. I would love to see gaps in time filled in from Uncharted, like stories between 2 and 3 being told in a TV show, style, or a movie style, or more stuff about hell, like Kratos transitioning realms entirely, like stuff that that you would read about in like collectibles. Like,
I want a quote from Martin Scorsese saying video game movies aren't art. I want every quote he's made about comic book movies. I want that in video games. I want bitter directors.
I would love for Nintendo to be another Marvel that we've had for the last 15 years. Like
and it doesn't even need to be like a connected universe. I just want to see their IPs.
I just want to run. Like that's all. Yeah. I mean, like I would have to find that roadmap again, and like I might post it in the Facebook group or on Discord. But I would be like, yeah, please, yes, please. Like
give me Star Fox. That's just Guardians of the Galaxy. Like
Star Fox was on that roadmap too.
Yeah, give me a Star Fox, give me a Kirby, give me a Donkey Kong. Those would probably be the main 3 that I would want to see. But there's plenty more. You got Icarus. Earthbound would be like a cool thing to mess with.
Mario was playing Kid Icarus in the movie.
Nice. There you go.
He was like, sorry, mini spoiler. It's an Easter egg. It's not really a spoiler. But yeah, I think it's awesome. So, so I mean, like what we're planning on watching, like obviously I went and saw, Super Mario Brothers. We took Owen with us, and again, it was great. He thoroughly enjoyed it. I haven't been playing a ton of games, so my store has been delayed longer. And like spring break was going on, and there's some other things going on with work, and I just really haven't had a chance to, other than like an hour here or there every other day with like Destiny. I had not really been playing much stuff in general, so I'm hoping like the X Defiant thing this weekend kind of gets me off the schneid a little bit and gets me going. For some reason, Owen's been playing Breath of the Wild more, as because I think he's starting to get ads for the other game, and there's just other stuff going on. But for the most part, watching, like, I watched The Night Agent on Netflix. It was just a Netflix show. It's like about 8 episodes, White House presidential assassination political drama. Not political, but just White House presidential assassination drama. And then just putzing through, like watching a little bit of baseball here or there. Like the Tigers are really bad. Watching a little bit of Ted Lasso, catching up on Mandalorian. It's just been a lot of TV for me. It's just been really, like, I slept for like 12 hours yesterday, and then I still slept more this morning. So I don't know if the weather's kicking my butt, if I'm not feeling good in general. But I don't know, like I'm a month away from 40, so I don't know what's going on with me right now.
Yeah.
So, but that's pretty much been the last couple weeks for me. So like I said, hopefully I can get going with some X Defiant. So I'd love to play with you guys, because I think X Defiant can be good. And I think that's really all I'm allowed to say right now. So, what about you?
I've been moving for the last week and a half. I was at C2E2. Was that happened before we recorded or after?
Remember.
Yeah, I did C2E2 last weekend, so I was at a convention for 3 days straight. And before that, we were packing, and then after that, we moved everything that we packed. So I have not had time to play anything. I have Resident Evil 4. I bought it day one, and then I had to pack everything up, and then went to a convention, and then moved. Luckily, when it comes to like RE4s, there's been a lot of like bugs and stuff that have been patched out. So now I think when I do play this weekend, because I do plan to play this weekend, I should have a really good experience because a lot of the annoying bugs have been patched out. So I am going to hopefully get some time into that game this weekend. That's like my main priority. Yeah, there was like a 2 days where I didn't even know where my Switch was. And I just have a ton of stuff that I'm trying to play. I know this is my sweater is a big Resident Evil fan. But yeah, I'm hoping to play that. And that's just my main goal. It's weird because we've been moving. We like kind of finished our TV shows that we were watching. So like right now I convinced Sarah to watch Band of Brothers with me. And this is a show that I've watched like a dozen times. But I just, for some reason I was just like, you know what? I don't want to think about anything. Though I know Band of Brothers is a heavy fucking show to be like, I didn't want to think about stuff. But it was just one of those things where it's just like, I just need to watch like something I've seen before because I'm too tired from moving. And I didn't get any days off from work either. So it's just been like work, moving, convention in between. So not a lot for me. I do have a whole list of stuff. There's like 2 or 3 Switch games that I want to pick up too that came out recently. So I have a whole list of games that I need to pick up. But at least I haven't bought any video games outside of Resident Evil 4. So I haven't added too much to it, except maybe 2 Switch games that I'll probably buy this week.
Have you watched Yellowstone?
No, it doesn't interest me. It's like a cowboy thing.
Yeah, it's just more like a lot of people are saying that we should watch Yellowstone. So
yeah, no, I who's in that? It's Kevin Costner.
Possibly. Oh, I don't know that stuff.
I know. I think so. I'm not a Kevin Costner fan. I'm pretty sure. I got to look it up. Sorry, Dave. You did this to me.
I'm just more, more curious. Yes, just because a lot of people have been saying.
I don't like his face. So yeah, no, I'm probably not going to watch Yellowstone.
I don't like his face. Oh my
Something about him's always bothered me. I hate Waterworld. I hate Dances with Wolves. Yeah, no, I'm not a Kevin Costner fan.
All right. So
you like that Draft Day movie though?
It's any football movies.
Yeah,
decent, usually decent for me.
I guess Field of Dreams is okay. Movie's kind of long. Sorry, now I'm just looking at Kevin Costner movies and just being like,
I did watch that. I was gonna say, right before we recorded, I watched that documentary, and I've already forgot his name, but the Hawkeye actor that got ran over by
Jeremy Renner.
Yeah. There's a documentary on Disney Plus, or not really a documentary, but like an ABC News report, like of him talking, and that was actually pretty good about like what happened to him and like how fast he's already like I don't know if he's gonna act again or not, but how fast that he's kind of recovering from that. So that's a really good like 40 minutes of interesting, especially if you're a Marvel fan and a Hawkeye fan. Like I definitely think that was something you could watch. So. All right, so questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. This should be interesting. Stefan writes in, so he goes, I have a question regarding people who want to play short games because they don't have time for longer games. I don't understand this. You have the same amount of time either way. If you prefer longer games, which he does, then just play them in the time that you have. The only difference is when you play is you will play less games overall, but if you are playing games you enjoy, does that matter?
Okay. I hate long games. I prefer short games. I see your point. If you're spending the same amount of time, what's the difference? Breaking a long game over the course of like 10 sessions or playing 5 games over the course of 10 sessions, right? That's basically what he's saying.
Well, what he's saying is if you play one 40-hour game and it takes you, if you play 1 hour a day, so you play for 40 days, or if you play 4 10-hour games at 1 hour a day, you can, and that's kind of what he's saying.
It's rare that a game that wants 40 or 50 hours from you, I feel like actually respects me for those 40 or 50 hours, and there's usually a lot of filler to get you to that point. And I feel like with shorter experiences, a lot of that filler is gone, and you just get straight to the point. And I feel like I would rather enjoy a bunch of different things and see what's out there than to focus on like one thing for a long time. Though I say that as someone who's put like 2,000 hours into like random multiplayer games here and there.
And I feel like I have one game that I've been playing for like 8 years. It's at hundreds of hours, but at the same time there's different things to do in that game. I definitely feel like there are I think kind of what you're saying is there are games that necessarily don't respect your time or do filler of like random side quests, and yeah, it's a side quest, but it makes the final thing that you have to do easier, so you feel obligated to do the side quest. So those kind of bug me a little bit. I'm in this dilemma right now because I'm getting more and more interested in Jedi Fallen Order, or whatever it's called, Survivor. Yeah. But I never finished Fallen Order. And I bought or played Fallen Order on like Origins Access when I first got my PC, like my other PC. So I'm at the point now where I'm like, it's on Game Pass. Like I can just play it and stream it again, and I want to play it, and it'll be super fresh in my mind. And then I can play Survivor. However, putting those two things together is a huge chunk of game, and I did something similar with Horizon, and I feel like the sequel was a little watered down for me because I had too much Horizon. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I'm kind of like, I also haven't finished Breath of the Wild. So like that's the challenge for me of like we were just talking about with Redfall. Like I'm probably going to be in the same boat as you are. Like I'll download Redfall, I'll probably dabble with it, but then I'm going to kind of push it aside because I'm probably going to have Survivor, and I'm going to play the Breath of the Wild 2, Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm trying to like, that's the part where I need to kind of get off my little schneid, and like I'm hoping like X-Defiant and Metroid can help me do that, because I feel like Metroid Remastered is probably like an 8 or 10 hour game.
Something like that.
Yeah, so if I can, get through, not get through, but if I can complete Metroid and complete Fallen Order, and then, maybe even wait and then play Tears of the Kingdom and then play Survivor, like that's a good chunk of things. And I also think it gets into the conversation of like feeling of accomplishment though, versus like I'm really close to the end. and you complete something, you do something, and then you get to decide what's the next thing that you're going to play, or that you get to pick the next thing you're going to play, versus, oh great, another planet or another destination or another thing to go to and another NPC. Like sometimes like that fatigue when you're in that 15-17 hour part of like, okay, like what's like, where's the next thing going to happen? So
I enjoyed The Last of Us Part 2 a lot. But that game hit 30 hours at a certain point, and I was like, I need this to be over. Even though I was still happy with how everything was working. There's something about just the time allotment that some games require that can be kind of a bummer. And I don't know. I just rather get straight to the point with a shorter game. And also, I think we're a little jaded a little bit with that sort of stuff because we also like to try and talk about different games for the podcast sake. So it tends to be easier. I've been doing
a terrible job of the last 6 months.
Yeah, and I'm right now I'm in like a middle of a move, so I haven't been able to touch really anything. I played Post Void 2 weeks ago and reviewed it on the podcast, partially because that is an 11 level game that, you know, I could put as much time as I want or as little time, and I could still see all the content for the most part. So yeah,
but a game like Starfield looks super appealing to me, but I'm like, I don't want to play 100 hours of Starfield. I don't.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to like a grindy RPG of just like, you know, at a certain point, you're like, well, the next 10 hours I'm playing aren't going to matter. I just need to get my level up, you know, and you're just going to be podcast gaming. I got to look at the chat. One day I will play Judgment. Don't worry. It will happen eventually one day, Curry. One day.
All right, so that is our show for this week. So Spotlight again, really quick. There'll be some X-Defiant interviews on the feed. Again, it'll be completely separate. It'll have an image. It won't be numbered. So if you don't like X-Defiant, don't listen to it. If you don't know what X-Defiant is, maybe listen to it. Check it out. If you're interested in codes for X-Defiant, I'm sure we can find a way to, like, I think that if I give you a code, you can then extrapolate that code into codes for your friends. Crossplay, all that stuff. Use our Discord for voice chat. If you play on Xbox, you have access to Discord. If you play on PS5, you have access to Discord. If you play on PC, you have access to Discord. So I would love to set up some sessions for that.
I hope the barrels are normal size, because that was the only thing I took from the last beta. I confused Dave.
I mean, I think it's. I never.
I know
really
Dave
played
can't
it too
say
much,
anything right now.
I know. I mean, I can a little bit, but I mean, I know I played a little bit too. Like, I feel like I got a little bit of and I haven't played much of it, but I think this might pull some cords on you over Overwatch Lite. So
I played it and it was fine. I can say this because I did not play it for the thing Dave played it for. I played the last beta. And the only thing that bothered me is the proportions for like some of the environmental stuff was a little off. So I'm hoping I don't
have the stuff in front of me, so I don't know what I can or cannot say. So I'm just gonna play it safe.
So we'll just stop there. But I will be looking at the environment to see if the car looks like
the small handful of viewers we have right now. I think I might be okay, but that just then something gets clipped and TikToked, and then DDG's dead.
I'm just saying next week I will be talking about barrel sizes and if a car looks like
Phrasing.
human beings can fit inside of it.
Yeah, so I'll definitely try to stream some of that. So please consider checking that out. To maybe turn notifications on so you know when we go live, other than for the podcast. But other than that, our main channels, our social channels, our Twitter is @DigitalDaysPod. Michael's is @TheFirstMJC. Mine is @GoodDaveHunt. Facebook group and Discord server are linked in the show notes. Patreon is there also. Patreon.com/DigitalDaysGaming. Yeah, and then that's really it. So you got anything else?
No, that's about it.
All right. Hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.